Hello and welcome back to the channel and another one of our CC rounds, and this one is Sea Ranch GC by mjhamilton113. So you've chosen, I've got the form up this time, default conditions, 2 holes no bunkers, 13 and 14, so back to back is interesting, 4 green sites within 200 yards, 4, 7, 11 and 1, and you say 1 par 5 under 550, but you've named 3 of them. It's generally you'd want to name the one that of those that you want judged, but 3, 7 and 12, to be honest, these are only coming in as tiebreakers anyway, so maybe I'll come back to you, but I usually won't. And you say also included par 3 under 125, which is 17, Paso Tiempo style ravine. Now, interestingly, you've also added that you want the blue tees to be judged, which are not the back tees. That can be interesting as well, because that provides schedulers with alternative options. And we're going to get pin 3, just for interest. So usual disclaimers, these are my opinions. First, I think I've played this one when it came out, but generally first takes, because why not? And yeah, I'll try to explain what I think about everything, but go with, as ever, it's your course, you know what you were going for, filter all of that through, I guess what you were trying to achieve. So straight away, it's a very interesting plot. We've got clubhouse here, I guess. Assuming that's clubhouse. And then first tee is a little way away. I mean, if we're getting really picky, there's no real way to walk to it other than along the main road. Personally, don't really care, but immersion factor, like that loses it a little bit. And you kind of want the clubhouse can be a cool integrated part of the course. So if this is 18, I guess. Myself and the flag. Yeah. Okay. So same thing. We've got a path up to the clubhouse, but like 18 and 1 quite a way away from each other. The ravine itself, yeah, it makes sense with how it works all the way down to here. We've got some bridges, we've got greens banked into it. Some of the landforms around the ravine don't make a ton of sense. So this big hill then going down into the ravine may be a little bit confusing. And I think with the ravine and this like lake area here, I don't think that necessarily works with the land. You'd kind of want to expect that going out to the ocean. Like the ravine would probably end up out here. Or where is the ocean? I mean, it's a fantasy style plot, but I think just be careful of popping water wherever. You kind of want that to make sense. Typically with these sorts of landforms, if you look at courses with ravines near oceans, I can't think of many off the top of my head, you'd want it to be making its way out, and it's typically going from high to low. And that will just make everything feel a bit more realistic. This is clearly more on the fantasy side. Bunkering looks interesting. There's some cool shapes there. There's a mixture of waste bunkers. We've got big sprawling bunkers. We've got slightly smaller ones. So again, I mean, questioning like consistency maybe a little. And then we have those as well. Actually, no, I mean, you've kind of done them all. I think the bunkering style looks pretty consistent, actually. You've kind of gone with those two. These ones are a bit different in that they're just bigger blobs, but we'll come to those when we get there. But the landscape looks really interesting, and potential for lots of fun golf holes here. Centerline trees, lots going on. And we go to all kinds of corners of this plot. Okay, well, we're going to leap into this one then and give it a play. So let's head back to first tee. And off we go. Okay, so you can see the back tees and then this front tee box. There. Now, one thing that does immediately leap out is like the planting around the trees. I think we can bring that a little bit closer, and like you can probably make it skip to joys of playing EA as I forget which buttons do what. So you've got all of the trees down here and clearly gone with some of the newer ones as soon as they came out, which fit the course. what I will say is, like, you look at your grasses and they are distinctly right around the trees and it's really heavily planted and then nothing. You kind of want to blend that in a little bit more. Have some slightly patchier ones here, you around here. Like, tie your planting spots together a bit more. That will look a lot more realistic again, is what we're after. Okay, first sightline. I really like these bunkers dug into the native area with the remove heavy rough. Like, that looks great, and the grasses, like, that's a really natural place to put some hazards, and love how that's been done. These little bunkers down here are also really cool, little scrapes, like, giving me little bits of Del Monte Heights vibes, which we love, of course. There will be judges who are not crazy about the surfacing with this fairway going directly into the bunker. Personally, I see why you're doing it and I don't really mind too much. You can accomplish it slightly more neatly in terms of getting the lines matching up a bit so it's curving around a bit and it's coming out of there. But it is a small technical thing. We have OB in the ravine, I think. Yep. The ravine itself, I'd kind of expect a bit more underbrush, like sunken trees at the bottom rather than just standalone trees with no grasses. It's a bit confusing to have all the grasses up here, which is presumably closer to the maintained area of the course, and then the really wild, rugged part has nothing. Again, not a major thing, but just question why you're planting, where you're planting, and how you're doing it. Okay, well, I don't think we want 3 wood. 3 wood puts us in the heart of the trouble. Driver gets us over most of it. We get the better angle for taking on these bunkers to the side. If we play 3 wood, we get quite long approach and really like the look of the green side as well. Like, this is a fun opening hole. Maybe a little bit narrow for CC, but still doable. I'd probably want you to encourage 3 wood layup a little. One other thing we can see that little. I'm just going to leap into camera mode again. This slope here, I think we can make that smoothed out a little bit more. So, like, you've got the hill, but this is pretty severe as a landform on a golf hole. You can see that's a good 7 feet up from here. That's quite a lot of movement. You probably want to lower this a little bit more and just blend that in a bit more gently. Bunker in front of the green looks. This cross bunker's great. Love that. Framed really, really nicely. A really strong opening hole. Again, I think planting around the back of the green, it would be cool to see some grasses and things here, and I think just a bit more detail on your sculpting. Like, we've got this green propped up by about 4 or 5 feet and it just all drops down. Like, could we be raising this up as a bit more of a friendly miss? Like, think about, we're playing CC. You put a pretty tucked pin behind these bunkers with an angle. I mean, I'm not too far off the furthest right I could be, given where those bunkers are. And I still don't really have the best of angles into it. Imagine someone approaching it from here and having laid up with 3 wood, and you put it at the bottom of the light yellow slope. And if they go long, there's a really big ravine and they're chipping back up, and it runs away from them, or there's bunkers short. Like, there's no safe miss on this green really, other than hit to the middle of the green, which might be fine for one hole, but I suspect we'll probably see it on others. So have a think about, like, giving a little bit more of a bailout option. As it is, I'd hope we don't need it, but there we go. Like, I love the core of this hole and the visuals and where you place stuff. It's just about a little bit more forgiveness around the green. Yeah. The thing I'm noticing, having played EA, is, like, the swing on there is so slow. Everything now goes really quick on here. I had the same with Colleagues Course, which I played a couple of days ago. So yeah, good start though. And I think you got the texture choices really absolutely spot on. Okay, yeah, again, like, detail planting in front of the tee is huge. Like, you can hide so many sins by planting effectively in these sorts of areas. So, like, some little grasses around here would hide the fact that the base of the trees is just completely barren, because I won't be looking at that. And little bits of underbrush coming out of here and the ravine would be great. This tee shot has some more many more questions than the previous one. So it's kind of blind. So semi-blind, I'd call this, because we can see where the fairway's going, but we can't see where it's ending. And if that's the case, you probably don't want to have it so that driver just runs you into death. Yes, the game will default you to a 5-wood, but even then, that's probably going through on the line we've got. And I don't know if you need this to be blind. Like, we could be lowering this or raising the tee. This is one where I'm going to check where your black tee is. Yeah. And I think here's the sort of issue. So if your black tee is there, that's a lot higher, but you then realise later on that this, and that's got the trees this way, which protect us from going down that route. But you then decided later on that you want to put on the blue tees, probably for distance purposes. However, that leaves us with a significantly worse sight line because you've lowered this land so that the black tee gets the best view. And that gives us the worst sight line, and it also leaves that path way out there really open. So I think this is one of those decisions that I'm going to guess was done really late on. And I don't, consequently, I can think just hit driver over here. We can hit under. And like, even if I'm going to end up in the rough, the distance advantage I'm gaining is, and the angle is so huge that people are always taking that option. Because that's an infinitely easier approach in. Up there, this is a really tough approach. Again, with no real bailout around the green. We've got a green surrounded by 4 bunkers. You've also gone with no light rough, which I think is a really bold move with CC. If you are going to do that, I'd say you need significantly wider landing zones than you've had in your first 2 holes. Okay. Lock wedge. I think the corridors your 2 first holes have occupied have been really interesting. Just that forgiveness around the green would make life a lot easier. And yeah, I mean, I will stop pointing it out. But again, the planting spots here is planted, here is planted, here isn't. Like, it's very all or nothing. And whereas this sort of stuff, where you've done it here, I think has been really nice. So like a little bit more like this, a little bit less like the circles around the base of trees, and just more of it. It looks very barren up here, where you could deal with some other stuff. If you're gonna if you're going with a mountain peak of sorts, clear the trees off it because you wouldn't end up with trees like that. Just think, like, with whatever environment you're going for, this is kind of obviously more of a fantasy style course, but at least have pictures for reference and look at them and see how the land, not how the land is, but how the planting is, like what's the natural environment like, and try and replicate that. 3, so should be sub 550, and it is. Okay, interesting. So tee shot, so sightline here, really, really good. I'm happy with that. Obviously spent a lot of time planting this little rocky area, and that looks really nice. I like the blender grasses here. Size-wise, these ones are pretty giant, and then these ones are tiny. I think you probably just want to mix those. Like they look a little bit odd side by side, but the blend of grasses and textures looks really good. Okay, another really tucked pin up 500 yard par 5. I don't really mind so much. Strategy is pretty clear off the tee. Just like if you can carry that bunker, you get a big advantage. But you also want to carry to that side of it so that you get an angle and you're not too far down this side slope. I like the big wasty bunker on the right hand side. I think that fits really nicely. Again, the removed heavy rough and combined with the grasses you've got here is like the texture work here looks really, really good. Where you've planted it, and like I think this green side looks stunning. If you didn't use Del Monte Heights as an inspiration, I wouldn't be able to tell. It really looks very similar in a lot of regards. I love the green side banked into the base of a hill. However, again, you've got really no forgiveness around the green. If you miss it, you're just in heavy rough, which for CC is going to lead to really tricky shots. And with this one, we're kind of forcing an uphill 40 yards. Like, if I don't go for this, I've definitely got to pitch over a bunker. which is not an easy shot. Yes, we've got layup area short, and we've got more layup area short of that. I kind of feel like I'm being pushed into going for it anyway. Probably not, but that might be the only way to stop it on the green. There we go. And like you have the helper slopes, but I think the scale of this green and the length of shot means that if you're landing on the green, you're always going to run through those. So I got lucky in that the heavy rough slowed me up enough to be able to use that slope as I'd kind of like to see it being used. In reality, I think you need a bit more green space, so like to make those slopes really work. I think the slopes you've got on the green are generally pretty good. However, I don't like the fact that it's falling off at the back. Again, if you're asking people to do all carry, you want the green to help them and slow them down. So generally back to front is going to be better for that. But I think probably, let's say you've got 4 beads of green here before it's running you off the front. I'd say you probably want 7 or 8 before you get to this little feature. And that's enough space for people to land the ball on the green and slow up. But again, really fun hole, really cool corridor. Like, there's a lot about this course to like. Okay, I'm just going to ask a quick question on routing. Okay, so we now walk back up and go around here. Yeah, okay. Another fun driving hole. Okay, big green, lots of red slope. In kind of on a little mound. We'll get to that in a minute. Down 124 feet. This asks a pretty awkward question. I suspect that most shots kind of end up in the same place. Either we go for it and we leave an awkward little pitch, or we could lay up. I'd like to see more fairway short and wider, so that if you wanted to lay up to the brow of the hill and have a flat lie, you could. As is, you're asking for probably a much more perfect shot to end up here than you are for anything down here. I think just you've got an idea of what the shot you want people to hit is. That's fun. Again, the planting on these bunkers looks great. Just if someone didn't want to hit that shot and end up at the bottom of the hill, where could they end up? I think there's the range of outcomes there is basically you always end up here, or you always end up somewhere down here, or bunkers or ravine, obviously. But like within the fairway, but whilst it's very very wide, it's basically only ever taking you to 2 points. And it would be cool to have a bit more of a variety of outcomes. Okay, so this pin, this is the sort of pin that is just not good for CC, or in fact on any level of design. I would hate to see this on a plat course as well, because there's nowhere that this pin doesn't run away unless you're leaving the ball long and right. Like the reason it's particularly challenging is because you've got this tier that you've got to carry and then it immediately falls away. If you're ever doing this, the top section must not run away again. And if it does, you can't be putting a pin on the very top section. Like Augusta does it occasionally with the trickiest of pins, and that's going for a major championship. We're going for CC level. This isn't. I appreciate that you've done it on a short hole, so at least that works. But yeah, there's better spots. To be honest, the spot for the pin is fine. You just want to raise the back of the green a little bit. Here, probably pin down here, pin somewhere on here. But even then, on all of these little tiers, you can see these slopes within those tiers kind of fighting what the rest of the tier is doing. So this one, again, you get over the top and then it rolls away. That's kind of unfriendly. Up here, again, rolling you hard this way, straight away, and again, away from the tier. And that's probably because you've taken the raise brush here and gone up, which is therefore making this bit higher than this bit. Rather than do a tier, you probably want to raise the whole of it and then kind of raise from the back off the green a little bit so that gradient carries on. Additionally, these red slopes are probably going to kick you off the front of the green if you're using that as a backstop, almost certainly, in fact. So you'd want to play test those because they're really pretty severe. Okay. Nope, we're not going to have enough to get up that. Oh, here we are. Hooray. I mean, obviously it's doable. It's just a question of like whether it's, for lack of a better word, fair. All right. Yep. Same comment on the blind tee shot as the other hole where we had it. You don't want this to be blind. If you do, okay. So black tees are here as well. There's some cool stuff going on here. Like if you are going for a blind tee shot, I love the bunkers as like aiming points. However, you can't go blind tee shot and have giant cliffside on just there. That's causing lots of issues. But I appreciate there's not very many hazards in the landing area at all. And again, the green site looks really good. The fronting bunker's great. Again, the green sloping, like this is really severe. Really severe. I want to say that's a plat pin. And in fact, this is probably a plat green because this slope is running you off probably not even into fairway, it's running into heavy rough, which if you're going to have a runoff, you've got to surround the green with a bit more fairway than this. Same here, like you don't want to land here and end up in the rough. There are some helping slopes at the back, but because this is on such a severe slope, I'm going to find it hard to use those. The setting of the green is awesome. The bunkering around the green looks really nice. Just the green slopes are the thing I'd probably want you to focus on the most. So look, as you can see, we're just going all the way down. And like, yeah, there's a question of control your spin, but I think that's a little bit more severe than how we would have wanted it. Might have over-egged that, yep. I do think your use of the remove heavy rough tool has been excellent. Okay. Okay. This screen is entirely too big, I would say. And the giant false front. Yeah, I mean, if we're ever doing this much red slope, then we need to be reining a green in. Again, the pin is really severe. We're plat level green again. I do appreciate that you've given us runoff here for that side, that runoff there. Yeah, we've got some more green slopes that aren't quite. This one's a bit less than the previous one, but you can see again you're getting up to the top using a raise about here, and therefore everything falls forward and falls back, which we don't really want. There are backstops to this pin, but they're going to be really difficult to access. Okay, well, we'll give it a go. These bunkers doing considerably. In fact, visually, this hole is doing much, much less for me than the previous ones. It's just not quite got the same level of. I don't know. This would have been a hole I just reworked completely, I think. It feels like you were fighting it a bit. Right. And you can see how, like, we weren't miles off, but I feel I've been really punished with this. And this is, I mean, a putt that's 3 feet up at any point you're probably going to be considering. Running scared after having the previous one go so fast. Yeah. Solid two, but. Okay, 7, another one of our short par 5s. Okay. That bunker would be absolute death. I think it looks really nice. It's very different to the others, partly because you've got the light rough around it, partly you've got a lot of space. It probably plays effectively pretty big. Yeah, we do not want to end up there. Really like this green on a short par 4. This one you've got just about right. I think the front section's great for CC. Again, though, look at your high point, look at your low point, like we're running past the pin and the low points behind it. Then we've got this slope. These two slopes are fighting each other, whereas I think you probably want to lower that a little bit more. Middle section, again, like is how you're doing your tiers. I think you're raising up here and here rather than necessarily considering the tier as a whole and what it's doing. Like the types of slopes on this green, like the amount of red and yellow, are really good. Still, green is small for CC, but that would work. It's just the actual slopes themselves on this one that I'd be looking at a little more. So again, you can see that we've hit middle of the fairway, and the sculpting is such that I can't really see the green. Well, I can't see the green at all. So that's where this land needed to be dropped to stop us being blind, because this isn't, I wouldn't say it's quite unintentional blindness, but it's pretty close. So at this point, looking at this plus like the stuff on the greens plus the plot sculpting, I think I'd say sculpting would probably be your main focus. The whole designs are interesting, the hazard placement works. I would say the other thing, major thing, is like space to miss around the greens. A lot of the greens are just like, it's either you hit the green or you're bunkers or heavy rough. Like you've given the space short, but pretty much nowhere else. And with this one, this could be such a fun approach, but I'd love a bit, given that the fairway's cambering a little bit right to left, I want to be hedging my bets close to this side. I would love to see this with fairway all the way around here, a bit more fairway on this side, and then maybe a bunker around about here to make me think about just carrying it and bouncing the ball on. As it is, I guess I've only got a 9-iron. I mean, I couldn't probably land it on the green and it would be fine. I desperately want to be landing this short and running it on. Like, that's a much fun shot. But as is, we're just going to have to go for it, I think. First bunker. That was not a good swing. And this is a pretty high tariff shot again for CC. I think part of it is know your audience as well. Deep bunkers are tough, but it's a short par 5, so that can work. The double breaker here, again, this slope is really harsh. Like running on a par 5, it doesn't make a ton of sense. I'm probably missing right. Yeah. Par is fine, given that throat shot. So again, sightline here, and like there's a lot of the same stuff now. My playthroughs tend to pick up speed after about hole 4 because you see the same things again. Planting over here, you've got the one circle of really big grass. Like, let's blend that in a little bit more. Lack of planting here. Sightline, we can't see the ravine that you want us to see. There's loads of stuff is blocking it, including like your walking path. Like, that's the view you really want us to have, which is a great view of a hole. Like those bunkers creeping out. Like, just make sure that this is what the player sees off the tee, because this looks awesome. This doesn't, which is a shame, because you've done a load of good work, and we also can't see the little bit of the ravine that you want us to carry. Because when you do this, what you'll see me do a lot is hit triangle and then immediately stop. And what I'm doing is like immediately judging when I get to that view what's blocking me. And here it's this bit of walkway needs dunking down about 5 feet. You need to raise the tee a couple of feet more, lower down all of this land gradually, and it'll all make sense. I think you, like I said on the last hole, you just really need to focus on your sculpting, I would say, because that's going to be the main thing that's preventing you from getting a lot of the things that you're doing so well. This green site's bonkers. In a good way. Like, it's a really fun green site. I'm not sure I completely... yeah, I don't really get the funky green shape, because that doesn't really fit with anything you've been doing, and there's not... Whenever you're doing a green shape like this, you want the contours around the green to make it so that you wouldn't put green in this bit. And you don't really have that. Like, but you see this mound here. If that mound were about... can't control from this angle. If that mound were about here, this would make a lot more sense. Pitching wedge. I think the green is also such that it didn't really matter where I went off the tee, because we're always going to have that shot to the elevated green. I think one of my like, again, green sloping here I think is much better. There's still a bit of weirdness, like where it's breaking both ways though. Like here you can see this is your high point, it's kind of going that way. Probably cancel each other out. Maybe a bit more this way. Oh, and then we pull it. That's a horrible putting stroke. Oh, okay. And you can see why this would be quite punitive on CC, because we've just overhit a putt from above the hole and gone a long way down. Granted, that was my dreadful putt. I take full responsibility for that. But it's, again, where are you building forgiveness in so that people can have those misses? Okay, so here's a better sightline because we see bits of the ravine a little more. I think with your plot creation, what's pretty clear is you've used one or two brush moves, I think, to like lower all of this land, which is why we've got some really severe transitions down here, which is also why this is going very black, because as soon as you dig trees into that, it's going to burn the textures quite heavily. And you've then got a very flat bit of land here, down very, like, pretty flat at the bottom. We want to make all of this a bit more gradual. This is a more CC appropriate green, but in the slopes, but again, saying that, it's very shallow and it's all carry over this bunker, and there's there's no chance of getting close to this pin. And if I go long of it, I've got a nightmare putt. Yeah, somewhere over here, I think. So it kind of just means you go, well, you can see the result. Like, there's no way of getting close to that pin. Granted, maybe could have landed it on the green, but downwind, pretty tough. And then obviously the next shot is all downhill, so that's pretty challenging as well. Again, those bunkers, like with the previous par 3, those bunkers are less visually attractive than your others. They're less interesting shapes. Okay, really interesting hole corridor, and you've given us a lot of width and places to play in, but if we did lay back, we've got absolutely no shot because of the trees. So all of this fairway is, to all intents and purposes, useless. Which is a shame, because this is the first hole where I feel like you've given us a bit of a layup option. As is, we're hitting here. Yeah, I love the idea of this hole. I think it just needs a little bit of work with how the trees are, because this is interesting and it's different. Oh, overdone it. Like, that is a hugely challenging shot for anyone on CC. Now, again, with the green sloping, we've got some slopes that are making it even harder, like the fact that you can't quite reach this corner. Bear in mind, I've got the longest driver as well. There are guys who would be way further back than me in that wind. If they're then trying to hook a shot around here to a par 4 to a tuck pin with a runoff this way, and the slope is going this way to a shot that's got to be coming in that way, that's really, really severe. So I love the idea. I just think the execution is a bit off on this one. And again, yeah. Because as you can see, I've got to try and feed it just over that slope. Like, a lot of these questions you're asking are of a difficulty level way higher than what you're aiming for. So yeah, you can see like how close to that I had to feed it just to keep it there. All right. Next one. Oh, I like this one. So we've got some more helper slopes coming in off the bunkers. Cool environment. I will say I'm liking the dead pines or sycamores a lot less than your other trees. I don't think you needed these, and I don't think they add anything. Good green for a long par 3. Might like to see this land raised up a little just to facilitate that balancing approach to a front pin. But I'd say this is probably my favourite of the par 3 so far by some distance. Let's see. Right between clubs. It's so close to being good. Not quite. Have stretcher holes. Okay. Oh, severe dogleg with trees on the inside, bunkers on the outside. Again, there's not much forgiveness here. If you're hitting these trees, you are absolutely dead. If you're hitting too far outside here... Oh, and we've been given 3-wood off the tee. This also smacks of a hole that you designed to play from the tee behind this, because there's no way you want us hitting 3-wood off this tee. Again, I love the whole idea, but forgiveness needs building in, because you're asking for a very high tariff shot. And yes, I don't have to hit driver. I could be laying back to here and then playing it's a 3-shotter. I'm aware of that. It's a fun shot, though. Okay, we've got more kind of unintentional blindness caused by this mound. Like, just keep going in and checking from this view, because you want to see, like, the bunkers around the green present really nicely. You want us seeing those, and that's a really cool green site, and I can't see any of it, which, yeah, it's a frustration, because you've done so much good work. Again, the green itself, the sloping doesn't make a ton of sense. We're going uphill, and yet as soon as we get there, we're having the green fall to the back, which I'd say you've used as a defence quite a lot. Okay, that's not too bad of a miss. Okay. There we go. Nice birdie. Yeah, planting spots again, you can see in the background, like you've done this bit, but background planting, you'd expect grasses under here. Just like keep looking from all angles. Planting here, planting here. The planting comment we'll stop making. I think I said that a little while ago. Lighting on this hole is really harsh. It's for a different... Okay, it's for a different hole. That's all right. Okay, so this is one of our 2 bunkerless holes that we want judged. This one works nicely. Get the driver down. The grasses here, I would say, are very oversized because we're getting quite close to them, and they look really big. To the extent that they're covering up the flagstick a bit. Yeah, like we've said it a couple of times, but the unintentional blindness again, because you got this mound here that's in front of the green. It's not really even affecting the green. There's no red slopes coming off it. It's not there for a strategic purpose. It's literally just blocking our view, which I don't think is what you want. Keep looking at sight lines. Ooh. And like as ever, whenever we mention unintentional blindness, that's not really saying that's the sole issue. That's like a product of the sculpting not quite being where you'd want it to be. And it just needs a bit more time, because there's so much interest here. Like the land movement's really cool. Just have us see what you want us to see and have it play like how you want it to play like. Nice to steady the ship a little bit after 10 and 11. Okay, and again, we've got a skyline fairway where driver's going to run us out, and we've got cliffside left that you can't see. In real life, this would be an absolute nightmare to play because you'd have so many lost balls into the ocean that you'd only realise when you got up here and you couldn't find it. So I think, again, just I feel again this is a well. Let's check. Where's the back tee? No, back tee's only just here. So like this is something that you just I guess weren't looking for. Oh, it's not even driver. It's 3-wood that would take you off the edge. Yeah, I think conceptually this one needs a bit of a rethink. But we have a better view if we play down this side, which is cool. This false front, I would say, either needs to go or you need fairway down here because that's just going to run me into heavy rough, which is really penal. Again, in placement, I would question as well, just because of the mound in front means that it's flowing to. It's just really there's not a lot of safe space to land and have a decent look at birdie with this one. Got to be very precise. And again, for CC, it's a contest that's really all about how do you provide forgiveness. That's a shot there. Cool look from here across loads of other holes. Like we like that. Again, like some of the environment work here I really, really like. And the sunken trees in here look really good as well. That's kind of what I'd want a bit more at the bottom of the ravines. Okay. Oh, we've got some crazy bridges going on. What is happening here? 1 sec. Let's just go into camera mode. Yeah, this is problematic. I think you tried to hide it with trees. Right. All right. Well, that is what it is. I think this comes back to the plot design as well and like the sculpting on that. Anyway, so again, sightlines wise, you've got trees blocking those bunkers. You just shuffle the tee this way a little bit. Like keep checking sightlines. The sightline out to the green looks really good. Just let us see everything in between. Oh yeah, I forgot 14 was our second bunkerless hole. Yeah, I mean, again, we're on a plat pin. Like you've got a tier tucked above a bunker that then runs away in all directions. I dread to think if you've got a pin up here or up here. I feel like it's more likely you've got one up here. If so, that's again flat. I think we kind of missed. We've definitely missed our mark a bit on difficulty. Fine. Yeah, and you can see like there's no like that shot has to be perfect or else. Like that's what we mean by forgiveness. Like how are we accepting a shot that's less than perfect? It also runs from front to back a little bit, which again you've used as a I don't know whether it's a defense mechanism or it's just how you've been sculpting, but that's something you want to be addressing. Because like I would say you want maximum 1, maybe 2 greens that flow front to back. It's really punitive on a whole course, and we've had a number. Okay, really blinding lighting. Again, same thing with ravine that cuts into play. Again with super severe pin. I'm speeding up a little bit because you've heard all these things. And yeah, here we go. So we've hit a bad shot, which will happen on CC. I would definitely be making this out of bounds as well. We'll try and play from down here. Yeah, I think we're going to hit our shot limit. Yeah, this is why we use OB. And yep, I'm fully aware that I should not have taken on any of these shots, but hey, we're back up. But there will be people on CC that do that if this gets on tour, and like, what are they rewarded with? The like pin that is as close to the third Augusta as I can think of, really. Jeez. Off a downslope as well. Like, this is, again, like you've hit plat level. Yeah. And if you're 2% off on that shot, that's where you end up. Come on. We're not going to hit the stroke limit. Yay! Quad is way better than I thought I'd get after the tee shot. But again, that kind of shows like the severity. Yeah, it was a really bad tee shot. But if you miss in the wrong spots, what options do you have? And I'd say even coming back to that pitch shot at the end, that's super severe and there's nothing built in. So another green where the land runs away after the pin. In positions, I'd say this is, well, you've got one here. You've almost certainly got one here, which is challenging. One at the back. Hopefully one here rather than anywhere further forward. Say for the length of hole, this is probably just about okay. But again, you're asking for absolute precision. The sad thing is, I really enjoyed the first 4 or 5 holes on this course, and like the back 9 has just gotten progressively more difficult and tucked, and like it's as a result, it's just kind of not been that much fun. So here again, I think we're hitting 3-wood partly because black tee is a bit further back. Driver's pinched, which is okay. We don't mind that. Pins on a mound, which, I mean, there's been a lot of questionable pins on this course. This is one the Rangers would tear to shreds because it's just on a mound, and that's one thing we just don't do. Because again, whatever you're doing, if you're going past the hole, and it's a short par 4, par 5 even, but I do appreciate you giving us fairway around the greens. Bunkering again, like this bunkering I've really liked all the way through. I think that looks good. It blends in really nicely. And I can tell you spent a good amount of time with that part of it. The green itself, I think you need to spend a lot more time on your green sculpting. I'm going to try and end up slightly short. We funneled on. Oh. What a way to end it. I was thinking it would fly past. All right. So in summary, there's a lot I like, and there's some really big things that are going to hold this course back, and like you'd want to work on if you're progressing further in contests. So like visually, there are spots of it that are really really good, and there are hole designs that are really interesting. The way you weave around the land and the particularly, I'd say the strongest stretch was the first 5 holes. Bottle, a lot of what you were doing on there. The change to blue tees rather than from the black did hurt on a couple of holes. But the main things are the sculpting is the single biggest thing you need to focus on, both big and small, and just like making everything fit rather than necessarily rushing to plant or place down surfaces. Keep checking sight lines from what the golfer sees, and keep checking your greens that they're not running away. Like, and then also the other thing, I guess the major killer for me with this course is the severity of difficulty, which is just you're putting too many defences in the way of par, particularly on, let's say, holes like 10 and 16 with that pin, 17 with that pin, for example, as well. There's a couple of others. That said, the environment, I think, has some real promise. I really liked large parts of it. I thought there's some potential really fun sightlines and golf holes here. I'm thinking of, what was the hole? Oh, maybe 13? Maybe it was 8. No, it was 8. I think the one I bogeyed by going back short. That had a great sightline, but it was blocked by a walking path. Like things like that that are easy fixes, but you just need to be more aware of them. I think I'm just looking back. Par threes, I would have probably wanted one around the 160 mark rather than. But this one, the 11th, I'd say was probably the best of them by a long way. The par fives, all like there were a lot of short par fives, which was an interesting decision because I don't think even 18 played quite short. Maybe it's partly the wind I've got, but like one of those two may be a little bit longer, or these three could have been a bit more varied. Yeah, I think there's loads I like. Go back to like hole one. There's so much good on. Hole two, there's a lot of good on. Um, I'd go back to those, look at what really worked well, and try and bring that in, and then go a little bit away from the other stuff that you were doing later on. Um, Hopefully that helps. Like, I don't mean to rip into the course lots. That's never the intention, but these are judging playthroughs, and if you sign up for a contest, that's kind of what I'm hoping you want to get out of it. Is like the feedback on what to focus on, and hopefully I've said enough about the things that I liked on there as well, whilst giving you a few. Like the main reason I say a lot of the, like, I guess stuff that could be considered negative is to exemplify and show what I mean by this is hopefully more helpful than me just saying sculpting needs to improve. Hopefully, this gives you a lot of examples and things where and explanations as to why and where that needs to improve. Hopefully, that helps. Cheers for the course, best of luck, and see you soon.